The one has gotten some really nice pictures.
Yes.
Steve, I've got 10.
I got 10. Okay, I want to welcome everybody and just a reminder that these meetings are online and you can click on the appropriate number and watch this thing and take part that way. And we welcome everybody that is doing that. We'll call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public forum. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak at public forum? Anybody? No? All right, adopt the agenda. I don't believe there are any additions or corrections. There's just some additional information handed out about the library circulation numbers and participants. I'll move.
A second.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes of September 6, 2022, County Board meeting and summary for publication.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And we have no reports and correspondence. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. You've had that for several days. I'll move. Ludwig.
Second.
Motion made by Ludwig, seconded by Moore. Any discussion on any items? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moves us to do the regular agenda, which is a public hearing for the Snake River Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan. We're going to have a presentation of the watershed plan by staff first. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm Caleb Anderson, the Land and Resources Manager in the Planning and Zoning Department. And today we are hosting a public hearing for the Snake River Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan. And I'll dive into just a little bit of overview about the plan. Are we not connected? Oh. Yeah.
Is it turned on the other?
Just advanced slides. There we go. So a little background on the plan to share just for the folks in the room. And then an important note is that you're not, the county board does not need to act on anything today. So it's kind of just a forum for a public hearing as we're required to do under this planning process. The plan itself was developed by the counties and SWCD staff from Pine County, Kanabec County, Mille Lacs County, and Aiken County, including the county commissioners and SWCD supervisors from those communities. We've had participation from Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, Minnesota DNR, Minnesota Department of Health, Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources, and also the public has been engaged a number of times as we've been developing the plan. So there's been a lot of eyes and ears and a lot of input put into how we're going to restore and protect the Snake River watershed. I've also provided a map there that kind of gives you a shot of where the various counties lie within it, what the water bodies are. So the heaviest player in the watershed is Kanabec County, as it comprises most of their county and most of their environmental resources. Pine County, it's we're about 25% of the watershed, but some of our highest value recreational resources, the Snake River, Kennemal Lake, Cross Lake, are in this watershed. And as well as there's a lot more relatively higher amount of development and more properties and tax base, and there's just a lot at stake for Pine County within this watershed. Let's see if I can slide it now. Nope. Oh, it did move then. Okay, so just a little look back at the planning process itself. We've been working on this for about 2 years. And part of that was a pandemic, which made it a little harder to move forward. We hired a consultant that had a bit of turnover. There's been staff turnover. There's been a lot of barrier or obstacles, but we've persevered. And as you can see, we're getting to the bottom of the process. We're now, the plan's been put out to state agencies to review and provide comments. They were given 60 days to do that. That's complete. The other thing we really want input on is from the public. So there's a public hearing today here and also being held in Mora, maybe even simultaneously. So any public input will go into revisions. We are getting to the point where if we want funding in March 2023, time is of the essence. So we're working very diligently with each step of revision, bring before our policy committee, get it back to the state. We're working very diligently to do that as efficiently as possible so that we can make those state dollars available locally starting next summer. So I'm not going to go into too much depth on the plan today because I just wanted to provide a little bit of a snapshot of what's in here. So this provides kind of the major sections of the plan. Executive summary, a resources narrative of what's in the watershed. Section 3 is kind of the meat and potatoes. What are we actually going to do to protect and restore the watershed? Section 4 is kind of what were some things that we want to look at in the future to maybe revise our plan? And then there's some other content in section 5 and section 6. I'll go through a little bit more. Next slide. This is a single slide, just giving some characterization of the watershed, because it's kind of interesting. We know what it means to us, that area of Pine County, but the character is a little bit different for Aitkin County and for Mille Lacs County. So in the left map, you can see that up in Aitkin County, it's mostly forest land. There's a lot of wetland. There's not nearly as much agricultural nor developed land. That's also true on the east side of Mille Lacs County, and maybe there, yeah. So this is the east side of Mille Lacs County, where you can see there's a lot of green, which is the forest land. There's a lot of that light blue, which is wetlands, where once you get kind of into Mora or Canadian and Pine, we're seeing a lot more of the cultivated cropland, pasture and hay, some big areas of red, which is developed land. So it's much different. And then the middle map shows the amount of public lands, and most of Aitkin County within the watershed is public land. So one would think there'd be less work to do in the watershed in that portion. Similarly, more public land in Mille Lacs County. And then a relatively lower abundance of public land through Canadian and Pine County. And then this is the impaired streams and impaired lakes. These are water bodies that are not meeting state thresholds, that are exceeding state thresholds for pollutants. So a lot of our major water bodies, the Snake River, Pokegama Lake, Cross Lake, Mission Creek are on the list. Pokegama Creek as well. So we've got a lot of work to do. So we've been very engaged in the planning process to make sure that we're targeting the dollars to where we need it. Next slide. Okay. So early on in the process, we engaged the public and they kind of gave us a popcorn effect of, I'm concerned about this, I'm concerned about that. Aquatic invasive species, flooding, whatever it may be. And we kind of categorize them into these issue areas. And surface water quality, land covered land use, surface water quantity, that's like flooding and ability of presence of wetlands, things like that. Drinking water and groundwater, erosion, soil health and soil loss, habitat and extreme weather. So we kind of parsed these different areas and had statements for each, as shown here. So we had an issue statement. We kind of described the condition of each of those topics. We prescribed goals. Okay, what do we want to do with it for groundwater? And then where are we gonna do it? So where there's surface water quality issues, where are those? So then locally, we were calling out Amber Lake, Cross Lake. And then finally, what are we actually gonna do to address those impairments or those issues within the watershed? So that's kind of the structure of the plan. And then I'm just gonna go through one example of those. Like I said, we have 7 issue statements, 7 different topics. So this one is just the surface water quality. So based on what the public told us, we kind of transcribe that into this statement, which is runoff contributes to algae and water quality and aquatic habitat degradation. Management of runoff across land uses is needed to reduce impacts to lakes, streams, and rivers. Additionally, internal nutrient loads in lakes can compound efforts to improve water quality, and habitat also needs to be addressed. So under that, we've tried to come up with some measurable goals. So we want to reduce phosphorus in priority impaired lakes by 420 pounds per year. Protect priority unimpaired lakes by reducing current phosphorus levels. So one of our unimpaired lakes in Pine County is Devil's Lake, just south of Cross Lake. It's not impaired. Okay, so is there something we should do to keep that off the impaired waters list? From a statewide perspective, we're interested in reducing the number of water bodies that are impaired. So Devil's Lake was on our radar for that. Partly just there's a lot of development potential in that area, and therefore kind of a focus needed on kind of protecting it as that gets developed out. Reduce sediment in priority streams and rivers by 220 tons per year. And we called out Mission Creek and the Snake River. And these are just the Pine County locations. There are other water bodies in the other counties, but we're focusing on just Pine County in this presentation. And lastly, reduce E. coli exceedance in priority impaired streams and rivers by 10%. And for that, we've called out Bear Creek as an opportunity to kind of rein in the E. coli loading. Any questions so far?
I have one.
All right.
So are you getting good input from the agriculture community at the meeting?
Early on in the process, we had a public meeting in which we invited farmers to participate, and there were several that did. And then once we had our implementation table, what are we actually going to do? We held another public meeting at the courthouse. Terry was able to attend that one, and they were invited. There were a few farmers there, so we're certainly cognizant of it.
Yeah, the word's getting to that.
Yeah,
That's the important. Whether they attend.
I have a question related to that too. Just curious with the attendance and who was here for the public testimony portion of this. Where do you put the notices for like today for?
it was put in the newspaper and on the website.
So it's website and then, okay, thanks.
And I will say Zach from Pine Soil and Water here, one of the partners in planning this, and we put it in our newsletter and we send those out 2 times a year. So pretty much every newsletter we sent out is an update on where we are in this process.
Thanks, Zach.
Yeah, I'm just thinking relative to our Kettle River, that you want to make sure you get outreach. And
For sure.
The hardest part of it, I think, is getting them people plugged in. I don't know how you do it, but you just got to do your best step forward, right?
Yeah. And I know I attended a Lake Association meeting on Saturday, and they're very well aware of what's going on.
Good.
Both Cross and Pokegama were attending the meetings for this too, so they did give a lot of input.
And the work to be done in the Snake River watershed is just going to grow exponentially from where we were yesterday to where we will be with this watershed funding. So in order to actually get the work done, we need all of those stakeholders ready to participate. And a lot of that will be for farmers will be opportunities for funding to do conservation practices. And then typically that's where much attention is given to where does conservation intersect well with production, productivity of your farm.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of overlap and a lot of research that supports it.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks. All right, surface water quality, then I just provided a few implementation actions that were under surface water quality goal 3. It kind of stream bank erosion corrections, structural best management practices, that's the middle one, number 23. And that's structural BMPs are built item things like culverts or feedlot improvements, things like that. Cover crops, reduce tillage is, and forgive me for going backwards, but number 22 is some of those kind of things you can plant or non-structural agricultural management practices. There's a number of opportunities for landowners to participate. Next slide. So I went through sections 1 through 3. I'm not going to really touch on section 4. That's just kind of some things that we want to reconsider at year 5 of this 10-year plan. And then the last couple sections of the plan are the plan and implementation programs, plan administration and coordination. Next slide. So there's a number of implementation programs in place already. And the State Board of Water and Soil Resources, it requires us to kind of acknowledge those programs in our plan. So there's some cost share programs that already exist for landowners where perhaps we can augment this watershed-based implementation funding with those other pools. Low interest loans and grants such as our septic system replacement low interest loan program. Equipment rental, as you're aware, the Soil and Water Conservation District has a no-till drill, tree planters, things like that. Ordinances, the ordinances that we are already implementing have a tremendous impact on protecting the watershed. And lastly, future monitoring, where we can kind of continue to dial in the resource concerns in the watershed. Next slide. Plan administration and coordination. So the group still has the ability to kind of oversee how are we going to carry this plan forward. So we're going to have a joint powers agreement of some type, which will prescribe kind of how we're to operate. But to date, we've contemplated a citizen advisory council, which is consistent with how they've had in the past, where people from Pecagma Lake Association, Cross Lake Association can be involved with the work that's being done. Also a technical advisory committee and a steering committee, those are more the staff members who are helping kind of shift the boat and put things together for the policymakers, the county commissioners and SWC supervisors. Lastly, because the volume of work is going to increase so much under the new funding pathway, we're proposing to add some staff to make sure that we can actually put these projects in the ground. So, and we're providing some flexibility in the plan as we go forward based on needs and whether other funds can be leveraged. But currently we're anticipating a minimum of 1 staff member to be kind of the coordinator for the whole process. I think that is my last slide. Any questions for me?
I have one more, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just on the joint powers, I always worry about the efficiency of the process. Is it gonna have to go to every county board, or how are you gonna, so once something's, the work can happen without having to be approved by Pine and Canadian, you know. So you're gonna set it up so the board can just.
So for the plan itself, we're leaving some flexibility. And because there's a long review process, 90 days. So now we're just delving into, okay, how are we going to organize ourselves? So that decision is yet to be made and can be left almost independent of the plan itself. Because amending a plan it just would be more cumbersome to box ourselves in the plan. So currently it's a joint powers entity, unlike a joint powers collaboration. Lower St. Croix is a collaboration where all of the plan amendments, annual budgets have to come back to all the local boards. If we organize as a joint powers entity, that policy committee can make those decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah.
And it's looking like it is likely to be an entity, but it's not a deal yet, for sure.
Very good.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Sure. I see like the second biggest line item on your surface water quality. You have one at 330,000, one at 180. And that's to complete 1,400 feet of stream bank buffers. And one thing I always asked when I was on the soil and water board is, like that number of 1,400 feet, roughly, how many feet of streams is there in this watershed district? I mean, it's gotta be huge, right? I mean, hundreds of miles.
So in some ways,
That's a-
there was a few things that go into that. How many feet are there within the watershed, but also under the anticipated funding, what can we actually kind of get done?
Yeah, because 1,400 out of the whole thing seems like just one, you know, I'm just curious as to.
And part of that is the cost. Typically, it's a minimum of $100 per linear foot with some of these shoreline projects. And we're gonna be getting roughly 800,000 a year to spend, so it disappears pretty quick, especially if we're to employ someone to coordinate the whole plan too.
Yeah, it's a challenge, you know, streams are constantly, river banks are constantly getting hammered and moving, you know.
And a lot of times fixing that is looking farther upstream in the watershed.
Yeah.
Where, you know, there's opportunities for re-meandering ditch segments or whatever it may be that can help downstream.
That's a challenge.
Any other questions from the board? Anybody from the public have any questions or comments? They flocked in here, Caleb.
That means
One more chance for the public. Otherwise, we'll go back to we'll close that public part of the hearing and go back. Any more questions from the county board?
Where's that picture taken?
Google.
Thank you. I think we understand now how these processes work and at least my hope is that it'd come out of here to be an entity, the government side of the house for me is so you can do things quickly and get things done and react to them.
Thank you for coming back.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin.
Appreciate it.
We'll move on to Health Insurance Committee report.
Yowza. So
I'll help.
we had, we've been talking a lot about how we didn't do enough last year to bring in our reserves. And so what we found out is that we are in, Kelly, what's the number that we're in the hole right now for insurance, you know?
You're not in the hole.
Oh, really?
Oh, we're about 90,000 to the good
Okay,
at the moment.
but do we have anything in reserves?
Well, about the 90,000.
Okay, so we didn't do what we set out to do. So when they first came in, United Healthcare said that they wanted us at 18% increase for this year or for next year. And Blue Cross Blue Shield came in and said 5%. And so actually, we're all pretty excited about going back to Blue Cross Blue Shield because they are so helpful and they're there for us and they've just been very good. So we are going back to Blue Cross Blue Shield, which we've decided a while ago, but I'm looking at the numbers and seeing where we are. We were talking 12%, but at the last meeting, we went up to 17% increase for our health insurance. Just to get the basics covered and hopefully get some more money into our reserves so we can succeed at this self-insured business. Anything else you can think of?
One thing I can think of is it's going to have a little more impact on employees
Yeah.
individually.
I would like to say, though, that in that meeting, we had employees, we had commissioners, we had David and Jackie were there and Jess and I think Jen might have been there too. But out of all the people that voted for this, all of the people voted yes for a 17% increase, except for the two union reps, which, that's their job. But even the employees see the necessity of raising it. So,
Yeah.
and it didn't end up being that much when Kelly figured out what their increases would be.
Yeah.
It was surprisingly how small that was. The other thing is that our dental insurance renewal, we're going to a different insurance company, I believe. We're going from Delta Dental, I think is what we had prior, didn't we, Jackie?
Right now, we're with the guard.
Oh, okay, and we're gonna be going to MetLife. And there will be an increase, but I think that there were better benefits that came with that. And that's solely paid for by employees. The county doesn't pay for dental.
Yep. Great, good job. I think you covered everything.
Dollar, instead of percentage wise, what's the dollar amount? What does 17% equate to?
Lot.
But it's a
Mr. Chair,
thousand?
members of the board, the total increase at 17% is $620,956. $621,000 is the dollar increase from 2022 to 2023. And then the total insurance cost then becomes $4.27 million. And I don't know if, did I give you, do you have this spreadsheet, Ryan? He can share maybe the costs on the screen.
It's the second to the last one is the per plan, the total annual cost for the employee. And then the yellow one is each paycheck is the increase
That's the increase?
for each paycheck. So you have.
I got a question.
Yep.
So, if we would have stayed with Health Partners, it would have been 12% on top of their 15 or
No, if we would have stayed with United Healthcare,
United Healthcare.
they wanted us to start at 18%.
And then, because all this is we're building in reserves is what we're doing, or our exposure, correct?
We're trying to stay
Above that 5%.
So next year we don't have this issue.
I think we've gone for a long time, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, with not a lot of high volume or high claims people, correct? Next.
I can't say yes or no to that, because I feel like I wasn't always in tune with those high claims or not, where now we see it very clearly.
That's true.
Um,
That's true.
Yeah, but I mean, we've had good years, we've had bad years. And really, now that we're self-insured, I think that it's kind of a lesson learned that in 2021, we had a good year, and we shouldn't have just assumed that 2022 was going to be a good year too.
I think what we have to remember is think back to when we were with Resource. If we had a bad year, they would just say you're at 20-some%. And so what we pay in premiums is always going to be this same dollar. We can manage it ourselves right now. And then we're saving that initial management fee.
Yes.
So we know our numbers instead of, we'd probably still be waiting or just hearing now, end of August and September is usually when they would tell us, so you can't plan. So we're really in the driver's seat in the sense more than we ever have been. And the dollars we spend are always going to be there because even if we trade or switch to a different insurance company, they're going to look at our usage and this is the charge it's going to be. They use the same formulas everywhere. So we're not going to escape a bad year.
Right.
So we have the ability to manage it ourselves. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
That's probably not the best summary, but
It was good.
That was good.
It was good.
So
So, yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. So we think that we have done as much work as we can with getting competitive proposals. The county board already approved moving to Blue Cross Blue Shield. So the only question really left is what would you want to set for the rates? And at the 17%, there's that fully funds the program in the worst case scenario. So if there were costs above that $4.27 million, those would be covered by reinsurance. So whether there's money that builds the reserve or not is wholly dependent upon claims in 2023.
Right.
But this, at 17%, you have zero exposure of reserve dollars, of which there are very few, or county dollars. If you looked at the 15%, which was also discussed in the committee, there is an exposure under that scenario of $70,000. And so that's what the county board role is, to kind of weigh and balance and take the input from the insurance committee and say, this is what we're comfortable for rates. And if you want to do that today, you could set the rates as they're shown, or if you wanted to take some time to further consider it, you could certainly do that. And there's no hard deadline in the sense that doing it today is no better than doing it in October. As we move towards open enrollment, it's good to have the rates locked in.
I think Jackie and her crew would appreciate it if we got it done sooner than later.
Yes. Definitely time for.
I mean,
to consider.
Right.
Open enrollment is October.
Thanks.
Thank you.
let me ask the committee, I mean, the numbers aren't going to change, right? I mean, you've fleshed the numbers out. They are what they are. We just have to decide if we're not so much rolling the dice. We know what the numbers are. We know we have to be frugal with our money. Yet we have to cover the cost of the insurance. So,
the thing that really surprised me probably the most is it's not doctor's office visits, and it's not medical procedures or anything. It's prescriptions. It's prescriptions that's really, really pulling it down. So that just really struck me as to how much things are costing there nowadays.
well, if you get off the beaten path, there's one little thing.
Yeah.
I got one little eye drop, but it's that big of a bottle, 30 drops, $640.
And that's really not expensive when you talk to some of these other meds.
No, that's cheap. There's people that are, their medications cost $1,000 a day.
Do we need to do MetLife today? Is that something that we want to?
Mr. Commissioner, members of the board, not quite, because Justin we still need to do a network comparison to make sure that we have the most amount of providers in our local network. So that information will be provided to us.
Okay, thank you.
So what's your others committee? I'll defer to you if you want to make a move on it today, or.
I think we should move on it today. Does anybody want time to think about it? JJ and Josh and Steve?
I've thought about it.
Yeah. So I'll make a motion that we go with Blue Cross Blue Shield as originally voted on, with a 17% increase.
And just a note, and the cost distribution as Justin calculated.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
I'll second.
We got a motion by Moore, motion by Lovegreen, seconded by Moore. Is there any more discussion, questions? I hear none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thanks for the hard work, guys. It's a lot easier being on a committee when things Pan out a lot. Better than you expected instead of not quite that way.
Right.
Okay, Personnel Committee.
I'll take that, Mr.
Okay,
Yep, we had our meeting on September 12th. And I'll just break it down like we always do. Health and Human Services, we acknowledged the resignation of Children's Mental Health Social Worker Cassie Peterson effective August 22nd and approved the backfill of that position or any subsequent vacancies due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. In Auditor Treasurer Department, we recommended the authorization for a temporary increase from 6 to 7 full-time employees of property appraisers and approve backfill of any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer.
Can I ask a question?
That's temporary. Huh?
Can I ask why is it temporary?
Well, because we don't know if that person will come back.
Employee who is out for an amount of time. And it's unknown, if she will be returned.
Okay, because if we get more cities and townships, which you said before that we have 4 more that are
Only 3 now.
3, okay. So if those 3 come on, are we going to need to keep this other employee?
We only need a complement of 6 appraisers to complete the work.
Okay,
However, due to the employee being out, we need the 7th.
okay, thank you.
And then, Mr. Chair, I'll keep going until get to where, and I'll make, so in the sheriff's office in the jail, we acknowledge the resignation of Corrections Officer Kayla Wolf effective September 8th. And approve the backfill of that position or any subsequent vacancies that are made or occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. And we acknowledge the resignation of Corrections Officer Joel Long effective September 12th and approve the backfill of that position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to lateral or internal promotion or lateral transfer. And I'll just add, I will move those and then the next part I'll talk about, but we'll take, these are action items. So I will make a motion to approve those resignation and backfills.
I'll second that.
got a motion by Ludwig, second by Lovgren. Is there any questions or discussion?
I will just make a statement. We always ask, what's happening and, why everybody that left has going different places or whatever it's family. There isn't any anti-county thing happening in that, in those. So it's a natural.
Any more discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh,
Okay, then,
okay,
we have another, we have one more. Then, we had an extended discussion on jail staff. And we're down 11, I think, right now, or 10 for sure. 12. And
12, I got 2,
okay, Rod presented us with like a 3-part plan on what we could do. So Rod, if you want to jump in, I'll let you, or if you want me to butcher it before you start, I can do that. Go ahead. You can have at it. I have it in my head, but not as good as you do, so.
So we presented kind of a three-pronged approach. We don't want to just look at the immediate and then just be done spending. So we looked at an immediate response, a recruitment and a kind of retention response, and then also a long-term career growth response. So the number 1 would be an immediate response, and we presented, I believe you guys, we had a little discussion before regarding an incentive plan to pick up shifts. People are getting extremely, they're getting forced overtime, a large amount. And so we'd rather have people pick those up. And it's just a way of saying, hey, county's listening, we're understaffed and we're trying to take it. That's just a meeting. That's not what I mentioned. And then the other piece would be we need to increase that starting wage. We did study, Jackie did the study in our what I call a market area where we're drawing staff from. And our starting wage is at the bottom where I shouldn't say that. It's not at the bottom, but it's taking into consideration Mille Lacs and Aiken County, and they're not really in our market area. So if we put them in the mix, we're not at the bottom, but where we're drawing, we're at the bottom. And our top end is pretty comparable. It's in there. So we need to address that starting wage. And one of the easiest ways to do that is just drop off step one without changing the whole grid. Just drop off step one, start everybody at step two, but then everybody where they're at moves into their appropriate step. The last piece would be a career growth plan. We looked at a state's model with, they have corrections officer 1, corrections officer 2, and Dave also pointed out that we have a similar in probation, which I was unaware of, which they have like a career agent and or a senior agent program, which really mimics kind of what we're looking at here too. You don't just go to that grade level. You have to attain years of experience, education, and certifications in certain areas. So you attain those, and then that is that career plan that I'm just not going to be the CO for a while. I'm going to be part of being a corrections officer and help in development and planning for our future staff. So that's what we're asking today, is to implement, get these things rolling. I guess I don't know at what stage, that I know union would be involved also, correct?
I think career growth is awesome. Just in itself, it gives somebody something to reach to within your group there. So I like that one. And I don't have any problem with dropping step one to attract. If it's hard to recruit employees, and if we sit there with no, they can go any other place cheaper, we're never gonna get it.
So you had said if we drop step one, would everybody move up?
Accordingly, correct, except for the top. But the top, I don't want to say I'm not concerned, because obviously I want to keep those people. But we can look at our career growth if they wish to attain certain levels. That's where we'd be at. And our top is pretty comparable with our neighboring counties in our area. We're competitive there. We're just not competitive in that start.
How do we compare with the state?
With the state, Jackie, did we have the state information?
We didn't have the state for this study, but we did prior to union negotiations, and I don't know that it would, I think possibly
the state's
might have
not.
started a little higher, but then we lost some ground after the first step.
Right. And I just got word today, and, I hate to, spew what I just heard. I like to look at it, but we know the state had a $10,000 sign-on bonus that they just upped it to 20 over a 2-year plan. They're having a really tough time. And we've actually drawn a couple of people from the state. I'd like to draw more. I know there's some cost implications, so I can share that a little bit with you. So with a minimum coverage incentive pay, if I just take my first half of the year and what that would have cost if we implemented that, it's about 15,000. So just assuming the whole year would be 30,000. The whole deal though is if we have that plan in place and it's working, that goes away. Because there'll be a lot less forcing. That's our intended goal. And once there's less forcing and less shifts to pick up, we pay a lot less. I'm looking at that 30 to be an extreme. And how do we pay for it? I'll guarantee you that's enclosed in my budget. Kelly, with the way this, if we look at staffing, it's what it costs to staff and the costs. If we're not paying it in a wage, we can pay it in an incentive, and there's more than enough money right there right now. Increase the starting pay. If we take our grid right now with the people that are in there, and I'm not looking at FICA or anything like that, just straight dollar wage, it's about 50,000 added to the annual. And I did that based on everybody that I have right now, but since I did that, we've lost 4 people. So they go to the bottom. So I think that's about $3,000 less than that. So.
Is for approval?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, just to answer a question from earlier, I just went online to see what Rush City Prison is paying. They're advertising starting $22.13 to $23.40, so a little higher than we are.
And they've upped theirs maybe recently. I guess a date on that. Wow. Okay. Now.
As current as the internet.
Okay. All right.
But I was just trying to see what they were advertising at. So with regard to the process for the incentive pay for the overtime, and for changing the wage structure. Those would relate to terms and conditions that we're required to negotiate with the union. So if you had an interest in moving those forward, if you gave direction for the administrator to negotiate the terms and conditions of those with the union, that would be, I think, appropriate, because then we could start that process to do that. And then with the correction officer 2, it's a managerial right to create positions, to define job descriptions, et cetera. And so if you wanted to move that forward, you could direct that we would draft a job description and evaluate that job description. And we've drafted, right? There is a draft out there, but there'd be a formal process then that we would initiate to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And maybe just ask Jackie, who's our HR manager, if there's anything else we'd want to add to that process.
No, I think that covers it, David. Thank you.
You know, sometimes I just want to add one piece, and it's not really good. It's just for information purposes only, is sometimes you wonder, well, why are we in our spot where we are? I think a lot of times we go through and we say, well, it's just the world right now, and it's where we're at. But to say that, just looking at our turnover rate, like numbers, you know, our turnover rate has been running at around like 14 to 20%. And that's healthy. That can be, as long as our fill rate, and we're putting people into those positions, it's good to have turnover. We can fill. Just this year alone, the first 3 quarters, we are at 40% turnover with a negative 40% fill rate. So we're going this way and not just moving the whole thing. We're going this way. So that's a concern. And then we ask ourselves the question, well, are we unique? And if we're unique, why? And we're not unique. And that's not nobody likes to hear that, but we aren't unique. There's issues with a lot of county jails right now. We're trying to find staff, and we're all screaming for that same person. So what do we do to be in the market to get the good quality individual to come work for us? That's where we're at. Thank you. Yep.
One thing I'll say is, public safety is a huge part of what. If our county is gonna succeed, we have to support public safety.
And Josh, you have a.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, this is really awesome what Rod has come up with here, because it isn't just to get people hired. It's get people hired. It's take care of the people that are here, and it's keep people and advance people. So that's a real unique way of looking at a very critical area that we have to do. Otherwise, we're gonna just have to close. And I've asked that a couple of times. I'm like, is there something we can do? Just cut some services there. There really ain't that. I mean, it just, if we cut, like I think Todd said, if you cut just the females, it would save you 1 or 2 employees. That's it. So it's not like it's a big savings or anything like that, which it wouldn't be a savings anyways. But if we can maintain our jail and have it decent, there is a potential of bringing a lot of other ones. He's had contact with a lot of other counties that are worse than critical. They have to shut down, that we could bring here too. And obviously it's not a money-making affair. There's nothing public safety that's money-making. We're not in that business, but it might help retain. And I just really appreciate it. I really do, looking at it in a unique way. And
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So I want to say one more thing. We're getting close to where we're burning out our existing staff with, you can't go home because we don't want anybody to fill your shift. And like the weekend before we had our meeting, I asked, well, how's your sick? They had 14 call in sick in that weekend. Well, that's strain related sick, with summer or whatever, you don't always ask, but that's an impact. Because they're not getting time off, which isn't healthy in that job. You start making it too tired, you're making bad decisions, and it's not healthy for deputies. It's not healthy for jailers. So it's just, and then of course we know how hard it is to fill. So if we burn somebody out and say, I can't take this, we don't want to lose people. So we always worry about retention. So it's all part of that. We have to fix it. So.
I like the incentive a lot. I think me being able to say, hey, I want to do this versus you telling me, hey, you have to do this creates a whole different attitude, which is going to affect everybody that's there. I like that.
Mr. Chair, if I can? Yep. I guess I'm just curious as to, the county already offered the bonuses to get people in, right? And there was only referral, right? You know, putting money towards a problem, if you can call it a problem. And there was only 2 so far in the entire county? And you got one was yours. I see now here, there's 2 more resignations for correction officers. So, you know, you lost 2. As of the state bonuses, you said now they're $10,000 and the state wants to double it to 20. Was that accurate, what I got?
Yeah, so we do these hiring fairs and we have opportunities to bring people in and say, hey, this is what, and this is just a snapshot, but we've had some people say they appreciate us not just having that high hiring rules, because they look at it, they say, well, what's wrong? Why do we want to work here? So I think we have just the right amount saying, hey, we're going to have a little incentive, but it's not just all that, because we want it to be a good place to work. I've had some people say, hey, go work for the state. You know, they're offering 10,000. Why do I want to do that? There's something else going on because they don't have no other program to back that up. So that's just my 2 cents on that. I think it's healthy where we're at, but if we go increase that to, I think it kind of dilutes everything that we're doing.
Yeah, I think we might be going to the same place because money, you can't offer somebody enough money to go somewhere if it's not a place they want to be. And then where do you stop? If 1,000 isn't enough, well, do you go to 2? If 10, 20 isn't enough for them, you go to, and then to get rid of a step, I guess, I'm familiar with apprenticeships. You have a first step, whether it's a plumber, an electrician and such. I don't understand the step thing. And I guess I would hate, knowing what I do understand with apprenticeships, just to get rid of a step. I mean, it was there for a reason. I'm sure there was a lot of thought and discussion.
Share insight on that too, because there's history there. And I think David can help that too. So to be a corrections officer, you have to come in and you go through academy and training, and then it's experience and boots on the ground and you learn, right? So what's that magic number when you become a full-fledged CO? Should you not be at the top of that? I can tell you it's not 10 years. It's about 5. That's my guesstimate. 5 years, you're well-rounded. You've got a lot of experience, enough to be full-fledged. So the history of the steps, it used to be short. You'd hire and then you'd get to your top. And then over time, it's grown for whatever the reason might be. I'm not going to speculate there, but I know there's people involved there too. They've grown and they've added steps. Myself, I think the steps should be, but that would be part of negotiations, and that should be reduced. And look at that. And so when we do comparisons too of our market area and what other counties, and we look at where they're starting and where their top is, you can't just look at that, because how long does it take to get to the top? And if it takes, I'm going to say 10 years, just because it's listed in there, it's 10 years. I know our top is at the step 7, and then your 10 is longevity, but it looks like it takes 10 years. When you can go to Chisago, and I bet you'll look it up. I think it's like 4 years to get to their top. So that's a big difference. I mean, that's an incentive in itself, and it doesn't, cost a lot because you grow faster in the apprentice program. It doesn't take 10 years to be a CO. We want to give them a plan and a way to grow. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, thanks.
I did that, Mr. Chair.
Yep, go
I
ahead.
think when I started, we had a 3-step process. And then it went to a 5-step process when they did a comp worth study. And then it went to a 10-year process. And I think a lot of that was just because they knew that there was the underpayment and they had to get you there. But because how does the county come up with that much money at any single time? So I think that's how we got to 10 steps. But I mean, yeah, I used to get to the top of the scale a lot sooner.
10 years.
Yes, way.
And JJ, too, part of this is if we wanted to raise the starting wage, we got to change the whole scale.
Mhm.
So this way we can just not hire at step 1, hire at step 2, and the scale stays the same. Because otherwise you would jump everything that way. So
I guess I'm just thinking if you keep if the answer is to keep putting more money at a problem, if the problem doesn't go away, what do you do when you run out of money?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Everything's got strings. I mean,
I
I can agree with everyone here. That's the best thing I've learned so far being on this board. And somebody says,
see what
"Your
you're
strings
saying.
attached." I get that from Steve. I
But if
mean,
you're-
I agree.
If you're looking for a job and employer over here is gonna give you $2 an hour more than employer over there, which one are you gonna go to? And that's what we're trying to fix, because our starting is too low.
Yep, and then I'm tying that right directly to the number of resignations. If they're not, if there's a reason why they're not staying in this trade. I don't think there's enough money we can take from taxpayers because the state already, that's out of the other taxpayer's pocket. This comes out of the other pocket of the taxpayer. I mean, pretty soon we're gonna run out of money unless we. I'm new to this. I'm not on the personnel committee. I just got educated briefly on the steps.
Yep.
If we continue to have these resignations, I guess I've questioned that before of how in depth do you dig into the real reason, why are they leaving? Why are they leaving? Yeah, and if you keep throwing money at it and you run out of money, what?
Well, without answering the money piece or whatever, but why people are leaving, the industry, if you want to call it, in corrections is changing a lot over the years. Mental health is the biggest one. I'm going to put that right up on the top. There's a certain mental health issues throughout Minnesota. Reese can attest to this too and help me out there, but we need to get legislation involved to help deal with these people and give them resources. And the resource right now is kick them down the road. I got a guy, I'm going to say it, there's got a guy sitting in my holding cell down there that washes himself with his fecal material. Okay. And we as the staff deal with that every single day. That's trying. I've got 2 people that left. I can't handle the mental health anymore. I can't handle doing this every day. And then walk in the door and 12 hours and say, I'm going to be forced to 16. So the mental health issue in the state, not just Minnesota or not just Pine County, it's not just our issue. It's going out through everyone. And then also with law enforcement being portrayed in the media in a negative manner, that's trying on everyone too. I don't want to do that. Legislation I talked about, COVID really had a big play on us because when through every day, COVID came in, we had people calling off a lot and we couldn't shut down. We couldn't work from home. We couldn't do anything else. There was no other plans in place. We just worked, and many times people work sick with a mask and you have to work sick as long as you're not really sick, and then just being short-staffed, and the minimum requirements and that just is a cycle that can go the wrong way. If we don't do anything about it right now or make an action, that'll snowball in the wrong direction and just becomes worse. So do I have the magic plan that's going to answer everything? And like you said, we don't want to just keep throwing money at it, but I think we need to do something right now. And then that buys us time to take care of things in the future.
And that's where I really appreciate this approach, because it ain't just throwing a hiring bonus on. It ain't just upping the starting wage. It isn't just having the people that are there. It isn't just incentive for working overtime. It's everything all at once, or all together. So hopefully you retain people, you recruit people, and you have people for a career.
These are all union positions?
Yeah.
When's their contract up? Next time, did they just settle?
12/31/24.
Yeah.
And one other piece I haven't written down, but when we talk about the years of experience in that growth plan too, we've lost a lot of years of experience. We've had some retirements, which is fine. That's healthy. That's great for the county. But between Brent, Larry, and Heidi, it's 100. Well, that's almost 100 years of experience in just those 3. And we've had numerous other ones, Kim, and people like that worked in there. And that's hurting. Our average years of experience are about 5 years right now. That hurts. That can hurt. So.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Just maybe to put a little context to some of the comments, Rod, that you made. So on the shifts that have been forced, the information that Rod presented to the committee, in the first 6 months of the year, there were 133 instances where the shifts had to be forced. So somebody had to be made to work more than they thought they were going to work.
Just the 4 or anything less than that, I didn't put it down.
Okay, so the
A
4,
lot of those.
Okay.
that's 73% of the days in the first half of the year, right? So to me, that's almost 3/4 of the days that the sun came up. Somebody had to work 4 hours or more longer than they thought they were. So that's a huge imposition. And Jackie is hearing that in the exit interviews, that people are just being overworked for what they're paid. And I think how much money we would throw at the problem or not before it's solved, or if it's solved, I don't know. That's a number that we can't know ahead of time. But today, with our current pay, we pay less than any county in Minnesota that we abut. So we start at less than Carlton, less than Kanabec, less than Isanti, less than Aiken. If we were to implement the increase to eliminate step 1, we would still pay less than all of those counties historically. So I don't know, it's putting money into the program. We still pay less than any of our near competitors, which to me is a reality that we have to deal with because we haven't overfunded, in my opinion, the pay plan.
I just am going to say one thing about it, and I appreciate all the work the personnel committee did on this, but I think it's concerning to all of us anytime we have to throw money at a issue, because it just is. But at the policy conference with the AMC, as we sit around and have coffee and whatever with our colleagues around the state, if you get to the point where you can't meet the minimum requirements of running a jail, then you become is it a 72-hour hold facility? There's steps, but anyway, if the gist of it is that is not a cheap way to go. And you can look at Cass County and Rock, I believe, and I can't remember where the other people were I talked from, but so they don't have as many jailers, so their jail budget looks better, but they got to have somebody driving those people to court or going to pick them up from some other county and hauling them back for a 15-minute court appearance and hauling them back wherever. So their number of people. I said, well, how did that work for you? Well, it didn't really, because now we got to find a whole bunch of people that can drive, let alone, now they got one person in a car driving 30, 50, 100 miles to find a room for them.
And sometimes that's taking our deputy off the street, make that run, especially in juvenile situations.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I can. I spoke with Sheriff Nelson briefly after our last meeting because that letter came in to us. All of us got it from Wadena County for their tax disparity. I called the county administrator from Cass County and spoke at quite some length with them on the phone. You point out that we compare to other counties, neighboring counties. Well, the neighboring counties are in pretty tough shape when it comes to taxation and everything also. Cass County, from the numbers he gave me, actually has more staff, more officers on the road. They have actually bigger land mass. It's really something that we should look at. And they are also fourth in the state of what they tax their residents for their homes. So that's the information I just got from.
They tax $5 million more than we do.
We had, I don't know what I'm looking at, but I know we all got the same letter.
No, we're not, and we'll never be the same as Aiken County. We don't have Enbridge, big pipeline paying a big part of the bill. We don't have big Sandy Lake with hundreds of $1 million homes on it paying taxes that are so we're never going to be the same as somebody else, but we always have compared to our neighbors because that's our draw for for drawing workers. It's not it's like was said earlier, it's an issue that's reared its ugly head in the last 3 or 4 years around the state, probably around the nation, is finding people to work as correction officers.
What's the population in our jail today?
60.
60. Wouldn't want to board them out.
I can't find anybody to work.
Yeah.
I got counties calling me wanting to take in work, taking work. But as far as Swift County, when you take them, because their staffing level changed their capacity for their jail. So I can tell you that we're really trying to maintain our capacity, but we're on the edge. And we'll end up we'll have to maybe change that capacity. And then it's boarding out, already boarded. I can board with the state on some problem funds, and I'm working on one right now, $350 a day. You don't want to do that. But this is a high profile or a problem case that.
Well,
So we need to make a motion on this.
If you want to move forward, there's,
it's not going to change what they're paying tomorrow, but it'll put the wheels in motion.
I will move Rod's 3-step plan.
Second. Oh, go ahead. You can go second. You can
I'll
just.
second it. I think it's a good plan, Rod. Thank you.
Got a motion by Moore, second by Lovegren to move ahead with this 3-step approach. And then it'll come back to the board or not.
we would have to, if we could do it through memorandum of understanding
Right.
with the union, which typically would not come back to the
Right.
board. You can get whatever direction you want.
Yeah, if you can do a memorandum of understanding, that would be my preference, but
And then the career progression, the correction officer 2 position, that would have to come back for formal approval.
right. Any more questions?
Well, I just wanted to, like, the career 2, the corrections 2, that was a maximum of 4 is what so it wasn't like every corrections officer could be a 2 or
And if we
whatever.
were to implement that today, I don't have anybody that qualifies. The goal is to get somebody qualified.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another question, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So the contract is up in 2024 for these jobs. When was that contract signed? Just 2022 or is it 2 years?
3 year.
3 years.
21.
So 21, was this the major issue in 2021? Were they asking, was that the demand
Two, and the steps,
and the wages and the,
I sat in on those, it was just, wage in general, I always ask for more.
Yeah, and we had a pattern of settlement with wages. And this is an essential unit, so they would go to arbitration. So their first 2 years were really set with COLA at 2%. I think that was recognized. And so that's in the 3rd year, if you look, we did 3.25% for the COLA.
Any more questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to reappoint Housing and Redevelopment Authority, EDA Authority Commissioner, Steve Oswald from District 4.
Yeah, do you need a motion, Mr. Chair, for that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Waldham, seconded by Ludwig. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Commissioner updates. Workforce, Central Minnesota Workforce. Terry took my place there.
I did. That's a nice little group of people. The one thing that they said is that Deed has pulled out of all of their buildings. they felt that they weren't reaching enough people and some other things. And so they pulled out of all of them. They were happy to find out that actually the workforce does do way more than what they thought. So that was a good thing. But when they pulled out of Cambridge, they had to relocate to a smaller building because they didn't have it full. And their building ended up getting robbed while they were in the middle of moving. And so they knew that it was somebody that had been there before because they knew they sold the computers, they sold a printer, but then they also drilled into the safe. They knew where the safe was, where they kept like gas cards and that type of stuff in there. And she said, luckily they hadn't replenished it. So they didn't get much, but they think they have a good tip as to who did it because they started selling computers. So that was a good thing. They said 69,000 people came to the workforce sites or they're figuring that 69,000 people will come into the workforce sites if a recession hits. The last time it was over 240,000 people over 11 countries. So let's see. They're thinking maybe on the 8th of December, having a visit where they'll come and talk to the Pine County Board at that time and talk about what's going on. Yeah, I think that was about it. They did talk about if they should be virtual or in person. And I told them Steve loves to drive, and so in person would be great.
Yeah.
I did tell him that the road gets long and that he does like to do the Zoom meetings. So they'll continue doing Zoom, but they will have it so that you do have to be there in January for the audit meeting in person. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
East Central Solid Waste. That was me. And let's see here. There's a solid waste management plan. Caleb will be working on that from our county. But what happens when we have to renew our permits to open the next cell? And there's a thing called certificate of need. And that goes ties back to your population. And somebody has done some calculations about how many tons of garbage a household should be getting rid of in a year. And of that percentage there is a certain percentage that should be recycled. So they look at our recycling number and they look at our total garbage number. And we don't do well in East Central Minnesota with recycling. So we got to do better, basically. But the problem with that certificate of need is if they don't like to just give you all you think you need. Mm-hmm. So then you got to go back and it's a process that I don't understand why if you got garbage, you got to get rid of it. What's the alternative? Throw it in a ditch. We're not going to do that. So, but they're working on it. The other thing is the deer carcasses. We had a big to-do about that, I think, a year ago. But anyway, if you have a deer carcass, take it to the transfer station in your county, and then they'll put it in a covered container. If it's cold, it works out really good. They're going to bag them this year, keep the smell down if it gets warm. And then when they get to the landfill, they need to be buried in a separate part of the landfill and covered with a foot and a half of dirt every day. So they got a plan. It'll work out.
Is this the new guy that came up with the plan?
Huh?
Is this the new guy that came up with the plan?
Actually, it was kind of the plan that we ended up with last year.
Okay.
And it works. So when Knavic found out that they had CWD deer, it kind of changed the whole idea.
Is there we talked recycling, the deer carcass, can you leave it out in the woods for Mother Nature?
The problem is it would be the best plan ever, but CWD is what they're concerned about. And so There's several schools of thought on that. Some people say it should be just, all the carcass should be left at the hill site.
Yeah.
If it has CWD, it had it before, it'll still be there. Other people say you should gather up every carcass and get rid of it in a landfill. In Pine County, we do both. But once you bring it to a processing facility, they don't have a means to take it back out in the woods and scatter them in the woods. So that's really what we're looking at. You know, if you shoot one behind your house and you bone it out, it's probably best off just left right there. But a lot of people don't do that. And especially in our counties, we have a lot of people that don't live here. They come up, they shoot a deer, they drop it off at Schneider's or someplace. What do they do with them? They get 100 carcasses a day. They got to get rid of them.
Thank you.
Anyway, regional library.
Did the fun part first. So in October, they're launching, it's called the Aspen Discovery Layer online, which is going to make it a lot easier to check out books or see what materials they have available or whatever. We had a huge meeting again with that book, It's Perfectly Normal. And unfortunately, I sent the First Amendment to Reese and he came back and they were right. We don't have a right to ask them to move the book or anything else, but we also did not have a right to ask them not to put that in our libraries, or we would be opening ourselves up for lawsuits. So I explained that we did not want it on our libraries, that our board had the consensus that we didn't want it in our libraries. But because of that, opening it up for lawsuit, I would have to vote yes, that we left the book where it was. And so that's where things are at. They also passed, there was a gentleman there, and I don't know if he was really who he said he was, but he said he was like a chaplain to our Senate and legislature. And that they've been actually looking at this book for a few years and it's been on their desks. And so he's hoping that they'll do something about it. They did put a moratorium on there that nobody can bring this book forward again for to be looked at for 5 years unless there's a significant law change or something that makes it so that it would be worth it to open the can of beans again. And if that guy is right, and if they do make those changes, then we'll be able to do something at that time. But for right now, our hands are kind of tied.
So did I miss, were they allowed to move it to a different location even?
No.
That doesn't hinder something.
And that's what they came to in the very beginning, was they wanted it moved to the adult section. And it came back that was a definite no, because it was written for 10-year-olds.
And we're not allowed to talk about this for 5 years.
Unless there's something that changes, yeah. And when there was a group in the parking lot and they're already coming up with other books, so it's going to happen again. But the time that was spent on this, not just by the library staff, but by the people, by the committee and the people that were on the ad hoc committee and everything else, there was just so much time spent on this that, we looked at it really thoroughly. So why look at it again next month, We can't make a change in next month. So unless there's a law change that says that you can make a change, it doesn't pay to redo it again.
Thank you.
Chemical Health Coalition.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right before I went into that meeting, I had been on a meeting with Shaq, and one of the things that they had been talking about was there were 2 counties that put a moratorium on sales for cannabis in their counties, and one of them is Kanabec County. And somebody was mentioning Washington, but I don't remember who the other, if it was Washington County, I don't know if it was them or not. But that's one of the things that they had asked, is if counties are looking at what we're going to do, because the government, the state passed it that you can sell cannabis, but they didn't do any regulations that went with that. And so they put a moratorium on there until the state decides what they're going to do. And I was reading an article on it the other day, and the state can make a lot of money if they tax the cannabis, which other counties or other cities would. And the state is saying, we're going to leave it for the cities and the counties to decide if they want to tax it or what they want to do, is kind of the last thing that I was able to find on it. So that's,
Because what about the standard for tobacco?
I know, right? Yeah, it makes no sense. But I think they kind of got slapped with it because it got passed with them not knowing that it was even in the statute to get passed. So all of a sudden they're being blindsided. So that's something if we want to talk about that or think about that. On that process, the Chemical Coalition had talked about having, it would be the Drug Task Force in Haley. Is that where we were at?
We would ask them, yeah,
To come and.
I don't think they're in Rush City still, but I don't know whether.
They're so good.
I
They're
know.
so good. But to come and talk about what the repercussions are and where we are in Pine County with the drug use and and what the cannabis, what it looks like, what happened in there. There was a study that was done in Iceland that sounds really exciting. They used opioid money to help pay for activities. So like helping the kids stay busy with sports or hobbies or whatever, choir, skateboarding, just keeping them busy so that they don't get into the chemicals. And it just creates a better positive, like kind of like 4-H. You know, we've talked a lot about how 4-H does that. So looking at maybe using some of our opioid money for that. They are making wellness baskets for people in recovery, and they've talked about how positive that is, that they can have a book on there about recovery. They can give you materials or just different insights or foods, that type of thing, so that they eat healthier. One of the people that were on there said, I think it was Sandstone School District or East Central said, I work with kids that are dealing with this with their parents. Can I get some of those wellness baskets for these kids to give to their parents? And they said, yes, absolutely. How many do you need? So that was exciting to hear that was going to be good. They said that there's more fentanyl, I never say it right, overdoses, and more people are seeking to use that drug. So that's another big issue that's coming up. I did get, and they talked about it at the conference last week, and I sent it to Karen to send out to the Chemical Coalition Committee, but there is a opportunity where you can apply to be a rural area that can go to North Carolina and look at what they're doing and get training and find out different things to do to help us in this situation. And it's totally paid for. It's a grant that's totally paid for. So we'll see if somebody is interested from our Chemical Coalition. That would be a good thing for them to go do. Anything else?
The only thing I would add is that Reese was reelected as the chair.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Congratulations.
DHS SSIS site visit. It was really great. Did Becky and her staff kind of lined that up, and we've worked for a long time with the Paperwork Reduction Act that we've tried to get passed, and so we figured we'd get the staff members up here, and we got AMC staff up here to see what we're really talking about. And so I think one of those ladies came back they've spent about 2 hours or an hour and a half actually working through a case file. And I think her comment was exactly this. I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad.
She was choking up. Yeah.
Nothing like hands-on experience, right?
Yeah, it was.
So one of the deputy commissioners was here, which was good because, you never know if you're talking to the right people. But I think Becky felt that we had some of the right people in the room. The AMC staff got a little better handle on what they're helping to talk about when they talk with legislators. It's always good when you get somebody to try to do some education on it. Our staff is wonderful. They did a great job. You got anything else?
So when I went to the conference, Angie saw me, and Angie's from AMC, and I got a huge, huge hug. And she said, thank you so much. You guys were amazing. She said that we met, they were here on Tuesday, and I was there I think I saw Angie on Wednesday, and they had already had, DHS had already had 2 meetings to discuss what they saw and what they witnessed and where they need to go. And we did talk about that at the conference, and the thing that was talked about is we need to get legislature in here so that they can see the process, so that they can push to move it forward also. And we had talked that day about having IT staff, and IT was supposed to be here for that meeting, but I don't know if that's the guy that got sick or, for some reason they didn't make it, but IT can't, they don't utilize it. So we had talked a lot about, at the conference, we talked about elections, they use the system, they're on the system, that you call them and you get things fixed like that. I mean, it's just boom, most of the time. If we could have something like that with DHS where they actually utilize the system and they understand the system, it would make it so much easier to get things done.
And I just feel compelled to make sure that everyone for the record understands that you're talking about state IT.
Yes, sorry, Ryan. Our IT is great.
Soil and water, did they meet?
Yes, it is. We had a resignation, Jake Dale, the forester, resigned, gave us 2-week notice. Try to get that filled. A lot of the same old stuff as before. Business as usual, I would say. I got the minutes if anybody wants to dig any further into it. It's fine.
Thanks. Extension committee. They meet?
I didn't make it.
Okay.
I think David did.
Yeah, they did meet. I was able to attend. It was out at Abraham's Table Farm. Fascinating for a non-farm person, right? To see the productivity that they get. They only cultivate like an acre, a little over an acre, and they do 4 plantings a year. So it's an intensive process. They start a lot of stuff indoors, and they do a box a week to about 100 families, mostly down in the Twin Cities.
On 1 acre,
And then they do,
8 feet by 208 feet.
they do some cattle and eggs and fryers or broilers. So, but it was pretty cool. And they're just east of Sandstone on land that they purchased now.
He also does a lot of work with the Osprey Wild and
Yeah.
just fixing their gardens and having stuff there so that they can feed their own foods there too.
They go straight across from that.
AMC Fall Conference, Terry and I went. I'll go first.
Okay.
Because I remember something. The opening speaker, they had a couple of panels, open it up. One was on property taxes. It was because everybody's in the same kind of boat where certain classes of property, like lake homes especially, high valley residential homes, saw this tremendous. I mean, people that have been assessors for 40 years said they've never witnessed anything like this. The tremendous increase in values. I thought that part was interesting. I always try to take something from any of those people that are talking, so it relates back home. But the commissioner, Brian Napstead, I've heard him say this many times, and he deals in a whole different county. But when if your value was X amount and it went up 20%, and your taxes go up 4%, it doesn't mean your tax is a check you're writing, because your tax rate now has gone down by maybe 8%. So the actual check you write doesn't change that much. And so it's an interesting perspective on it. The problem that we know is all classes of property don't rise and fall at the same level. We've seen that this year where commercial properties in many cases went down. A house on the lake, tremendously.
Rural vacant went high too.
Rural vacant went up a lot less.
So vacant went up because, and we all know why, it's because we follow the trend of sales, so sales went through the roof. What was the other? Oh, no, my mind went blank. The other opening,
Oh,
elections,
yes.
elections. And I'll let Terry talk about that because Terry's an election guru. But some counties have been inundated with requests for data about the election that happened 2 years ago. A small county where they run the election the same way we do. We're all friends and neighbors running the election and they're claiming there was fraud. And there is none. There was none. They haven't proven that there ever was any. And yet they keep coming back to these counties. So it's taken a tremendous amount of county staff time to answer those data requests. And now we got another election coming up that they're trying to get ready for. And they're still answering these data requests.
And I didn't understand that, because they talked about you have to redact all the information, which you do, but if people requested information from us, they were supposed to go to the state. So the state has all that information. We did very, very little. Did that change?
There are some data requests that do have to come directly from us. And some new things of data requests.
Okay.
That we haven't seen, that the state does not have the data.
Okay.
And so,
Majority of it, they get right from the state. We never
um,
had to do it.
the state is liking to push things to the county now and liking each county attorney to make determinations whether we should be sending that data or not.
Wow. I liked it when we just sent it to the state. And I think one of the things that they talked about was the lack of witness signatures, which we're not going to be doing that again. The drop boxes, which we're not, I don't think that that's going to be something that's going to happen again. So, there was a lot of things that were learned from COVID and what the changes that they made, that they probably weren't the best changes because they did bring out some doubt. They talked about the election machines. And I had mentioned at our table that we spent a lot more to not get Dominion just because we don't want people to mistrust the elections. But yeah, it was.
The one thing I remember, the people that insist on people doing a hand count.
Yeah, that's.
Statistically, it's been proven for 100 years. There's a 3% statistical error when people do things by hand. And there's a 0.0001% chance when a machine counts it.
One thing that they were saying with that, and a lot of people are really pushing to just get rid of machines and go back to a hand count totally. In my first year in elections, it was hand count. And I was at work at 7 a.m. and I left at 9 o'clock the following morning because that's how long it took to get everybody's results back and then get them in the system. And then I was back at work by 11 because we still had a lot of work to do. But they were saying that when you hand count, you'll look at the piles and you might have 26 in one pile or 22 in one pile. And each pile is supposed to be piles of 25. So when you hand count, he said you'd sit and watch some of them and it was crazy, the errors that were made just with getting the piles of 25 in order. So.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And Kelly, I don't know if you want to comment because we do have some precincts that do hand count.
Yes, we did.
You got some actual data that.
Yeah, so at our primary election, we have 6 very small jurisdictions that hand count. And that's been that way and that's fine. But it's interesting at the primary election, as we were taking those hand count jurisdictions and inputting their data, of the 6, as we were putting them in, 5 of them, we thought, these numbers don't even make sense. And so then we actually recounted them and 5 out of the 6 were wrong.
Right. This is a lot.
Right.
And these are the smaller districts where they don't have that much to
Right.
count.
Yeah,
When you add like Windermere, the city of Pine City,
Yeah, if you're
different
counting
story.
3,000 instead of 30, it's hot anyway.
Yeah.
The overall conference it's always, I think, the same thing. a lot of times learn more from the guy sitting next to you than the office or the presenters, but this is a policy conference, so I'm on the transportation committee and we talked a lot about different modes of transportation because like it or not, they are coming and how do we continue to keep our roads in a good, safe condition when the structure that we have set up for many, many decades is changing. Because with electric vehicles, you don't buy gas at a gas pump. And so you pay right now, you pay a $75 extra fee on your license tab. That's probably going to go to $200 now every year, which is kind of the average amount that a car pays in gas tax. Somebody's done the calculation. So when people say, well, those electric cars don't pay for the roads. Yes, they do. They just pay for it in a different way. Which was a good reminder to me. I'd kind of forgotten that part.
So I sat in on the health committee because that's what I'm part of. And I reached out to Sam and Becky before I went and asked what do we want to see for a proposal? And Sam said, there's all this money that the state gives out in grants, but you have to qualify for those, which goes to bigger counties. So it'd be nice if we could just get that money and we could put it towards what we need and not have it specified because we don't get that money. We don't get those grants. So that is one of our proposals that's going to be going. We got that one pushed through. And then the other one was on data and just the simplifying the systems and getting the systems up to date to help our employees to be able to do their jobs better. So that those were the two things that we got that I was pushing through up here that are two of the proposals out of 4 or 5 that we'll have. So
the other thing on transportation is a bonding bill needs to pass because that's where we get our bridge bonding money. And so when we don't get bonding money, we still got to replace a bridge. So a $900,000 bridge comes out of our regular construction budget instead of out of the bridge bonding bill. Lakes and Pines is easy because David was Johnny on the spot and he invited Denise, the new director of Lakes and Pines, is going to come in November and give an update on Lakes and Pines. And basically it was her first meeting yesterday and she was very well prepared and very well organized. So, and the chairman and the vice chair were gone. So I'm the second vice chair. So the meeting lasted 35 minutes. And we got everything done. Okay, we got a lot of upcoming meetings and.
I have 2 others.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I have the TNT meeting and one of the big things that they're doing with that as far as broadband, which is important to us, is they're getting their mapping system done through the federal government. And so Leslie sat in on a meeting that they had where we can go back and say, you have our wrong numbers. So like one person said, one county was saying that they're down for having amazing broadband throughout their whole area, but it's by using the satellites. And they said, really, we don't have broadband in our county and the satellites aren't all that great. They're better than what we had. So it's going to be really important that, and it's excellent that we had, I can't think of their name right now.
Hometown Fiber.
Thank you, Hometown Fiber, come in and do that study because now we've got those numbers and we can go and we can look at the mapping and we can fix it. So Leslie sat in on how to do that. There's another one on Friday that's going to be talking about what our steps are and making sure that our broadband is good. There is some bills that we should be monitoring. One is for home internet accessibility. One is for broadband connections for rural America, and then plans for broadband and grant rapidly invest in deploy broadband. So there were 3 speakers, I think, at that meeting, and that was a big talk. There's also the 988, like we have 911 for emergencies, but there's 988 for mental health, for suicide prevention and mental health issues. And they're talking with Rod talking about mental health. That was a big conversation that we were talking about. So yeah, I'm going to go back to the conference in just a second. So that was the TNT meeting. And then with the mental health, going back to the conference, is Terry on? Terry's online. Good. There's one of our counties and they call the probation department Nick's daycare. They have up to 12 kids stay in their probation department because there's no place to put these kids that need help. So they said they've got 2 probation supervisors that work in this area where these kids are being held. And there's 2 for every 4 hours because they can't keep them there any longer. And they said the majority of them get beat up at least once per shift. They set it up with the jail so they can go downstairs in the jail and take their showers down there. And they said the jail doesn't really like to feed them. So a lot of times it's McDonald's or Subway or whatever, but they were talking about just the huge need that we need for people that have mental health and places to go. I'm talking to another person. Actually, my nephew works at Hennepin County Medical Center in the psych ward. And they just released a person in their clinic or that was in the hospital in one of their rooms. And it cost the county $8 million because he was there a little bit over a year. Because they don't have any place to put them. I mean, it's that bad. So yeah. That was TNT and then going on to the other thing. And then yesterday I sat in on a NACO conference and they were talking a lot about the grants that are coming out to help build the government, workforce development. Billions of dollars is being given to local units, but it's usually going through the governor. But it's to build companies and facilities to help make the electric car batteries. It's the big one right now is they need to get those batteries made. So it's billions of dollars is being given to start building those processing plants and get that going. The one thing that they talked about, we had a Minnesota Senator, Ann Johnson Stewart, was talking, and she's an engineer and she owns an engineering firm and said that it costs, and I was thinking of Leslie with our broadband grant, we were talking about how much money it was going to cost for us to finish that grant process for what we got from Pete Stauber's office for the broadband plan going east. She said it costs up to, and she said normally 30,000 or more just to apply for a grant once you figure out the hours and the time spent because it's so, and we had talked about how much it was going to cost for us to get somebody because this page has to be a half full and this page has to be 2/3 full and all the criterias that go with it. And I thought, man, to put that number, $30,000 just to apply for a grant. 25 to 30 page summary alone was part of a grant. So that was a big one in there. The federal government is really promoting using the universities to help write your grants applications because that's what they do. So that's a lot of money to pay to apply to get money.
Yeah.
Those are my others.
All right. There's a list of stuff that we got to are coming up and we're going to take like a 5-minute break and then we're going to come right back here and see what we can do with our budget.
See that?
Yeah.
He's always selling it. But you were talking about that?
Yeah, I think he pulled it for this budget, didn't he? No,
Everybody back?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, David, you want to start us down the path of where we're at, where we need?
Sure, I will. First of all, if you have the memo that packet, on the second page, in the middle of the page, there's a paragraph labeled ARPA spending. And in the first paragraph, the last line, there's a number 440,000. That's a wrong number. It's 408,901 if anyone's doing the arithmetic. It's in pretty well. On page 2, there's like a quarter of the page down, it says ARPA spending.
Yep.
And then if you go to the last line, the last full line of that paragraph, there's a 440,000 of ARPA funds.
Yeah.
It's really 409. So it's an inconsequential number because it doesn't feed into anything. But I just realized that after it went out, if you're doing the arithmetic, it's wrong. So we ended, or my understanding of where we ended the last meeting was we had a gap of about $1.6 million. And there was a task to come up with 2 options. One was an option that tried to balance ARPA spending, budget cuts, and levy in a way that got to a balanced budget. And then the other way was to present an option that had a 0 levy increase. And so the options 1 and 2 are outlined. The option 1 was the balanced approach. And I think everything that's in there is self-explanatory. I think we got to the budget cuts by cutting out some stuff like an increase in the dispatcher number that slipped in. And that was just someone went from full-time to part-time. And so the part-time position was carried as a new FTE when it really shouldn't have been. It's just changing within the existing. Some of them were cuts to increases in the professional services and the equipment. So there's still an increase in the sheriff's budget in those areas, just not as much as he asked. And then it eliminated the lieutenant position, but kept an additional deputy position. And if the sheriff were here, he would want to be sure that you remember that we have a hire ahead program. And so in reality, he was functioning recently at that larger number. It just was not in the budget. And so then for the ARPA cuts, I captured everything that had already been identified as not needed for spending. And then I made some suggestions that are shown on attachment B. And so in that final column C is everything in ARPA that would be proposed to change. If that's probably the best way to get the summary of that. And then the plug number became the levy at 3%. And so whether, some of those, all of those, none of those choices are the ones you would make. I just present them as a potential to get to a balanced budget. And then, obviously that sets it up for you to have conversation. The option 2 just took all of the cuts that were proposed in option 1, and then it eliminated the increased deputy. So that.
Can I go back?
Yes.
Figure B?
Yes.
So I just don't want to understand the 300,000 that was insurance stabilization and it went to 0.
No, that stayed there.
Yeah.
We didn't take, that column B is things that we're saying we should not do with ARPA money so that it can cover 2023. So the 300,000.
Is that being used somewhere else?
No, it's if it has a 0 in column B, that means that it's the column A amount. If there's a number in column B that's other than 0, that means it's the column C amount. So for the jail, the first one, the jail enhancements, originally $1 million, proposing to reduce it 130, so that 870,000 is what would remain. So on your example of the insurance stabilization, there's $300,000 in column A, there's 0 in column B. So the proposal would keep 300,000
And insurance.
in insurance.
That's okay. Got it.
Does that make sense?
It does now.
Okay, I wasn't sure how to.
I didn't know
it out.
if you pulled it out and stuck it back in somewhere else.
No, so if it's in column C, that would be the proposed number. If it's not in column C, then the column A number would be the remaining number that's on change.
So we could still use those dollars
Yep,
in that. So would that impact half of the 600,000? Because we're still in the negative. We're not in the negative.
half of the 600,000 of,
That we have to grow in.
oh, yeah, you could, I mean, just as a point of fact, any ARPA dollar that's not actually been spent, you could decide to reallocate. So
That's all I want.
in this case, you could say those $300,000 are identified for medical insurance, health insurance rate stabilization. We would like to use them to write down the $600,000 increase in 2023. So the first part of that statement, I believe the board has said. The second part, they have not said yet, but you could. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
Can we go back to, when I was reading through this the other day, I think I understand it. Where did I find the thing about the tax rate?
Yeah, so the 3% levy would result in a tax capacity rate reduction of about 10%. And the clearest way to see that is to look on this sheet
Right.
and look at you choose the levy amount. And then I'll take the 0% levy, for example, and the proposed estimated rate would be 49, I'm just rounding, would be 49%. And you would compare that to the 60.4% that's up in the upper left part of that page. And so the difference would be the reduction. And so you could do that for any rate. At the 3%, it's about 10%, from about 60 to about 50.
I think that number resonates with me because when it was about 69% or 68%, we made a vow that number is a number we're going to work on to continue to get it lower. The other thing that I was really happy to see this morning when we went over the state auditor, and she had the charts that showed our fund balances. We've had this slow and steady increase in fund balance. So at the same time, we've kind of lowered our tax rate. We've kept our eye on the ball of keeping that fund balance growing or not.
What is that percentage rate all about?
Our fund balance?
Yeah.
Probably over 30.
Oh, so we are doing pretty good.
We're doing quite well, Matt. I think
We just haven't had a meeting on that for.
I think we should be
The next meeting.
we should be very happy
That's the good work.
about that.
I think the board had made some very deliberate moves to budget to increase that. The option one proposal includes a $50,000 contingency. That
Right.
if it's not needed would grow the fund balance a little bit.
Yeah. And I think we've been very deliberate over the years about making sure that, first of all, any leftover money got put into fund balance and actually budgeting for a fund balance, because when you get down to virtually nothing as a fund balance, and we got to pay people every 2 weeks, it gets pretty scary for the people writing out the checks. How they're,
Like that right when it first came out.
yeah,
They're just coming off that, dude.
it was. And then we've made tremendous strides.
A question, just starting, the biggest ones on top, working down, I see, of course, I was involved with the conversation on the jail one, I remember, and the broadband grant, but then now we just get into a bunch of zeros there. Economic coordinator, county-wide housing. Is there a reason why we haven't taken a little bit off of any one of those to help the situation? Why are those bigger ones at zero? It's easier to get I think, a little bit off of the bigger amounts than, of course, when you get down to the smaller amounts.
Yeah, so the economic development number is a calculated number. And so if we cut that number, presumably we'll be impacting Leslie's hours. So that would reduce her hours that she has to work. The countywide housing rehab, that was 200 and.
I think it was a total of 800.
Yeah, so that's come down about $250,000 from where it started. It just came down before this iteration, so I just captured the new lower number. The Pine Technical College Work Fast PCCI program, that was a fixed dollar amount that we contracted with them for, so we'd have to renegotiate that.
Like we've already paid it.
Unless you look at the audit. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
The vehicles and equipment, that's real vehicles and equipment that, Mark can use to buy trucks and cars and things. The health insurance stabilization, that seems like it's been an important piece for some commissioners, so I didn't touch that. The youth programming 4-H educator, that's a project specific thing. So we have a contract where we said we would allocate this money. So if we wanted to change it, we'd have to renegotiate that contract, which presumably we could do. So I don't, the election equipment is spent.
Yeah. So the biggest one is, that's 657,000 of wages through 2026 and benefits?
Over
6 years.
6 years, yes.
6 years.
Gotcha. So it's got two in it.
Yeah, and I think like I had explained in the memo that the choices that I made were just my choices. They may not be the right choices, right? But I hadn't heard anyone campaigning to cut any particular ARPA spending. So I didn't want to, I just I did what I thought seemed reasonable to maintain the programs that we had said we wanted to do with finding some more funds.
So the U of M youth programming and the 4-H educator, that's for the new 4-H educator also, correct?
Yeah,
That's
what it is.
Yeah.
So we're meeting next Tuesday with the band in Hinckley to talk about the facility and what programs. They're kind of, they're leery. So, they're asking a lot of good questions.
And so I think the great thing about the ARP program, it's good and bad. It's hard for Kelly because it's going to drag it out longer. But if for some reason the wheels fall off of that program,
Yeah.
we don't have to hurry up and spend it next week.
Right. It's there for
We can
something else.
reallocate it for whatever. Health insurance or whatever.
So option one, we get a deputy. The other things that he looked for, the rifles and the tasers, we're just gonna kind of work that in, you're thinking?
Yeah, so he had requested $50,000 in $50,000 more in two of his lines. I took half of that back and so gave him $25,000 increase in both of those lines. But I think, just like we did the handguns, a few years ago.
Yeah.
That was a big number. I forget what it was. $50,000, right? We didn't budget that big number in 1 year. We used some savings, we used some budget, we put together a plan and we were able to do it in a way that seemed to make sense. And so I would think we can figure the rifles and the tasers out if we have, say, a 2-year planning horizon.
Okay. So option one is really kind of what we were looking at as far as that.
I think it's pretty awesome budget to come up with. Option one gives us
Lower than I thought it was gonna be.
way more than I would have ever originally thought.
Right, yeah.
The only thing I'm thinking about is our insurance impact on our employees. That's what I'd really like to fix. The insurance impact on the employees each month. And you know, I don't mind having them there, but all we're talking about is retention. And, you know, not driving people away and stuff. So it's like, if we believe that, we should be trying to fix that a little bit, right?
And
Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, I remember, and those of you who are on the negotiating committees remember, and Terry, maybe you were on the other side of the time. We tried for years to get an employee, a single employee contribution to health insurance,
And I like it.
to the point where we were at $5 and they were still at no, and it didn't, right? We succeeded, right? Now everybody who gets insurance has got skin in the game, to use that phrase that I heard back then.
Because I believe you need to have skin in the game. That's just my.
I agree, they need skin in the game. And I think because they have skin in the game is what all the employees voted for
Yeah,
Right.
because,
70%, because they want this to succeed too, because they see the.
and they look around, we have a pretty generous,
I know, it's just that one has, maybe we'll drive them off of Viva, I don't know.
Well, if you're earning $40,000-$50,000 a year and you have a family plan, this is a significant, the proposal that we have for health insurance is going to be a significant increase to you.
It's $14,000 for Aviva. They're paying
Yeah, and that's,
more than $1,000 a month.
and that's not a good plan to have if you're a $40,000 or $50,000. I mean, I think that's the reality. That's super. That gives you-
they gotta pick a different.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and that's part of it.
But I think that's part of negotiations and not, and something we don't settle here, individual.
So I will say though, that when I started, all employees were free, whether you were family
Yeah.
or single, everybody had free health insurance. And I watched I know, it was really good. And it was like no out of pocket, you know, I had Nick and he was a free baby. I mean, But I mean, I watched employees who would work all day and then go home and take their kids to the emergency room because they didn't want to take time off and it was cheaper. You know, it's just easier. You didn't have to wait in line, you know. So you watch this abuse thing that's going on.
I get
This
that.
is, yeah,
So
so,
part of it.
yeah,
But I just think this is a big jump.
yeah.
Okay, I'm just want to be mindful.
Because we've still got the 300,000 of ARPA funds to help stabilize it. So hopefully, once we get through this next year, and that those ARPA funds will be in a better place come
Yeah. And that's what I really want.
2024.
That's the goal. I would love to just shore that whole thing up personally. Because next year, I think it's going to be worse than this year.
I think part of that 17% is claim makeup from last year because we were very conservative last year.
Shouldn't we be, my opinion, you're looking at things, never had blue zones before, right? That's new.
Brand new.
That's brand new. That has to do with health. I would just soon see that as 0. Now we go towards the health. Yeah, costs of anything related to health. To piggyback on what you said, to help with the pocket for employees that only make 40 to 50,000. There's more that make more than that. It's easier for them to take on that. And then never having a economic development coordinator. That's a new position also, right?
Which we want the county to grow, we have to.
Well, right, but you also would, we gotta measure it. I guess I can't recall any local measurements of what are we accomplishing?
But see, right now, that's not a levy.
No, but it's so money that can be, you know, moved
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
And I just
No.
heard COVID's over. I just seen that on 60 Minutes, so
I think they
we
just,
got 19,000 down there.
I think they just had a
Masks.
groundbreaking for some housing that is a direct result of that, JJ.
Leslie?
Well, I just haven't, I guess I haven't.
But I think the clearest measure is found in broadband.
Yep.
Where we have $9 million of federal and state grants that we would not have if we did not have an economic development coordinator.
Right.
To coordinate and pull that together. So that was her initial focus was broadband because that was a county board top priority for economic development. And so, I mean, that's, if you want a measure in my mind, that broadband is the best first measure.
But she has so many fingers going out in different directions too, like Thursday afternoon, a childcare workshop where we want our workforce to grow, but Pine County is horrible for daycare. So you can't get the people, you just can't get the people to work because they don't have anywhere to take their kids that they can afford. So she's working on that, the housing, she's just doing so much and she's brought us so much forward.
So, David, if we leave the blue zone dollars there, the 90, right?
Yes.
We're leaving,
Yes.
that's like money in the bank too, if something happens down the road, right?
Yeah.
Is that just gonna be, they're gonna spend it on something?
No, it's
How's that gonna happen?
dependent on that program getting its feet off the ground. And one of the reasons it would get off the ground is if we had seed money for it. Because when they look at funders, they want to know Essentia and Blue Cross Blue Shield want to know what's your skin in the game.
I get that.
Yeah.
But I remember, I was at the presentation and the guy said there should be no levy dollars going into this thing.
Right.
And basically I look at this as levy dollars.
Yeah.
So.
Me too.
And I think I look at it like Arrowhead Transit. We had to upfront some money
Yeah, kick it up.
to have a program that's been working in our county now for 12 or 13 years that we haven't stuck one nickel of levy dollar.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just saying,
We had to promise some upfront money and we got beat up for it. But in the end, it all came back. And now the program's still going.
so we could be smart with this dollars too, and say, yeah, we'll contribute 10 to something or whatever.
But I think we have to leave. I mean, that's
Keep it there.
that's a pretty significant cut from what they were asking for.
So,
Half.
sorry. Back to this blue zone. So
Yeah,
somebody.
that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
okay, so residents from any resident of the county can come in and participate in the blue zone?
Yeah, it's not for county employees, it's for everybody in the county. It's to try to make everybody healthier, so it cuts down on our health, the common person's healthcare costs.
And there was a county board goal of community health improvement. And so Blue Zones was a program that was identified to work towards that county board goal.
Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
I mean, we kind of talk about skin in the game. We look at everything to come with the budget that we had going and to come at a 3%, taking some from ARPA, some from levy, some from just cuts. I think that's a hands down pretty easy way for me to go is with that option one.
Yeah.
And I appreciate all the work and
I look at just my piece of land. At 3%, my two parcels. I get a minus 73 and a plus 99, so, I got a $20 to $23 increase.
I get beat up, but I built a house on
Yeah,
them.
you built a new house. You deserve to get beat
Yeah,
up.
I guess. Other thing is too, like with ARPA spending, I don't want to just drain it. I mean, we could possibly use this to stabilize next year and use going forward as
Right.
well. I mean, if it's not working out. So I'm not in the position to, we have some good stuff there that I think, yeah, balancing the budget today is a big part of it, but maybe trying to minimize impact on the budget going forward is something that we always talk about.
If Enbridge would have swung that pipeline through 50 miles of Pine County, we'd be sitting like Aiken County was up 35%.
It could be someone as simple as Leslie there at the table saying, hey, this is why you go this way.
Yeah.
Not that way. I don't know.
Well, this is just a preliminary.
Yeah, we got 4 months to go before we have to put the hammer down on it, but this gives all the staff,
So are we gonna have?
all they can give a little breathing room. And then, pardon me, Matt?
So if whatever we decide today, are we done? Is that what it's, could we say, hey, let's go back and for.
I'd say we're done for a little while. And then we're gonna come back and revisit it maybe in November, December, just to see if there's any tweaks, because we can't raise it. So whatever we set today is our maximum levy. We can make it less.
No.
And it's gotta be, we gotta set the preliminary by the end of the month.
Yeah, so unless we want to come back for a special meeting just to set the levy.
Preliminary, no. I would make a motion to go with option one.
Second motion.
And that's to set the preliminary levy at $21,272,255.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I think he
That's
said.
it.
So,
$21,472,255.
And that's a 3.2%.
How many cents?
No sense.
We got a motion by Moore, seconded by Lovegren. Any more discussion?
It's preliminary only, right?
Yes,
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable with it.
but we can't go higher.
I know, but it's our job to figure out, keep thinking.
Right, right. We are not done thinking about it till the last meeting in December.
And I'd like to see a lower start number too myself, so I know we can still talk it down, look at everything and cut.
Just can't go up.
Start at a lower number.
Can't go up.
It's easier for, I'm trying to accomplish. It'd be a start at 2.
Just for reference, where did when we were at the 1.7, what percentage was that?
Like 8.6.
8.6, okay.
You were what?
We were
We started right out of the gate.
Oh,
at, I mean, just as a percentage increase, it was 8.6. So we've come down, it's what, 2/3?
you guys did good.
Yeah,
Kelly puts in a lot of work, and then Terry is on the call. I think everyone else has dropped off, but there's a lot of staff who work really hard to present some pretty reasonable requests. Doesn't mean that you would agree or that I would agree that they're the right requests. But the highway came in at 0 levy. Health and Human Services came in with a levy increase, but they're following last year where they were down 80,000. And I should look before I say anything, because the year before that was
It was about 2, wasn't it?
0. Yep. And the year before that was 129,000. So in the last 2020, 21, 22, 23, they had a $129,000 increase, an $80,000 decrease, 2 zeros. So over time, that seems like there's a pretty fee.
Yeah. It can be fun.
I think when we look at 3% raise and we know that just the insurance increase of for employees is about that same amount. We did
That's what it is. That's pretty much.
Well, we have a motion made and seconded. We've heard some discussion. If I don't hear any more, we'll call for the question and we'll all in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed?
I oppose.
All right. Well, the motion carries. We will move ahead and take a day off for what, get right back at it.
So how we going up to Willow?
Willow River at 1:30?
1:00.
1:00.
I have to be in the city of Sturgeon for zoning, or I am not able to attend. Right now.
Well, you want to throw us give us a bag of garbage, take up there?
I just started before I came.
That's, I'm hoping to drive my pickup up there, clean it, open the doors.
I can just dump it right in.